Greetings to our listeners. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Welcome to the program, Your Health Matters, where we discuss the matters of health that are of great interest to you. And tonight we are discussing a very important subject. This is one subject that all of us in this world go through. You are either in it, out of it, or going through it. And our subject tonight is grief. That's our subject tonight. Thank you very much from our panelists who have joined us. We have Dr. Mukahiwa and Dr. Mulutsane. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking your time to discuss these health issues. Maybe let me start with you, Dr. T. What exactly is grief? When we talk about grief, what is this thing that we call grief? I mean, I've heard people say, you know, this person causes me grief. I mean, I just don't know now what do we mean by the term grief?
Thank you, Pastor Jay, and good evening to our listeners and happy Sabbath. Grief, in just a simple term, is a natural reaction to loss. I mean, we have got different types of experiencing regarding loss. I mean, it could be loss of a loved one, loss, an anticipated loss of life. If you happen to have a terminal diagnosis, you know, you're diagnosed with cancer, loss of an important relationship like a divorce, you know, job loss, you know, a whole lot of losses that you are going through. So whatever your reaction to it, to that particular loss, it's grief. You know, you can even, you know, loss of independence, where you find that somebody through a trauma, he happens to be disabled, and that on its own, losing a limb, you know, losing the what to call the experience of walking, or maybe having a stroke, you know, cannot do things that the person used to do, and you have lost those functions, you know, physical, sometimes cognitive. You would find that people go through grief. And basically, my pastor, you know, everybody through one stage of his life goes through grief. Just like growth of a child, where a child goes through developmental stages of growth, even with grief as well. You have got 7 stages of grief that were concretized by a Swiss psychiatrist, you know, Elizabeth Ross, you know, who came about these 7 steps of grief. You know, he says first you experience shock, you know, about the whatever has happened, disbelief, and then you are going through denial, you know, and you also go through bargaining. You know, that's where a person, if you are a Christian, you'll be going through bargaining with God, making some covenant that if it happens that I get back what I've lost, this is what I'm going to do. And a feeling of guilt, you know, and guilt, a person becomes angry, you know, about it, and falls into depression. That is the 6th stage. And lastly, it is acceptance or hope about the situation. So just as the developmental stages, you know, around growth of a child, so it is with grief. And I must say, my leader, just before I let go of the baton, you know, is that it can be something that is that you go through, you know, for months. You can even go through for years. You know, Dr. E can tell you when a patient presents with symptoms of stress, depression, or anxiety disorders or mood disorders for that matter, where you actually, when you try to probe the patient, when what exactly is happening, and then you'll be telling about the loss. I lost my mother. And when you ask, when did you lose your mother? It says 10 years ago. Don't be surprised by that. People go through grief in different stages, and it can be a temporary, sometimes it can be something that can extend for quite some time, and finally, that is the process around grief. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, sir.
Now tell me, whilst we are there, can someone get into grief without realizing that he is into grief?
And it's very important, my leader, to stress this, that you would find that there are changes. If you know a person, you can be able to see a change in behavior. And if you associate it with the loss, you can actually pick up that the person is going through grief. And I must say, my leader, that this is very important, that grief, whether you believe in God or not, it is going to overtake you.
Wow.
So it is imperative that we are able, to go through this topic, be able to understand it, so that we can be able to deal with it, especially in in Christian people, because sometimes you would find that the person, changes behavior and we do not see it. We find that the person prays, is called a prayer warrior. You find that the person is involved in the church, yet the person is going through grief. The person is trying to hide, from going through the experience through church work and so forth. And the church appreciates everybody, who shows commitment. But sometimes, if you understand human behavior, you can be able to actually check that no, that is not commitment. That is actually a person going through grief. Can I tell you a story of a lady that I met this past week? She was going through grief because of a loss of a love relationship. She got divorced, and she was so into it. Those who were close by, we could see that it had affected her so much. And then she went through it, and it was about 5 to 7 years ago, and even started developing a ministry of talking to divorced people, and Dr. E will tell you that, sometimes as health professionals, we don't get very much impressed by a person's motivation, innovation, and commitment, because you can actually see signs that this is not legit, and about 7 to 8 years after the experience, having started a ministry around talking to divorced people, and then the psychiatrist picked up that she's going through depression. This thing is very, very, very important that we talk about it, so that people can be empowered to better deal with it. Thanks.
Yeah, look, this is important now, especially that we're going through this pandemic. There are a lot of things that are happening that can cause grief. But Dr. E, tell me, can someone grieve because somebody is grieving? Is this thing contagious?
Contagious. Well, it is possible to join in. In fact, especially when we sympathize, we get ourselves into the shoes of the person and the emotions and the process that they are going through, and we get involved, so we can actually start grieving as well, as because we are related with the person. They have lost a loved one or lost financial security, for example, with the COVID-19, your company is closed. And so you start grieving and the other person gets into that mood as well. You remember when you meet a depressed person,
yes,
you start to, the depression reflects in you as well. When you meet a maniac person who's excited, yourself get excited. There's that shared connection that we have as humanity. That's why, you know, when Jesus, for example, Jesus saw the suffering of Martha and Mary, and he wept. He wept at that because he could feel and sense. He was moved. You hear Jesus was moved by compassion when he saw the suffering of the people, and he healed them. So we get connected. We cannot separate ourselves from that.
What could be the causes of grief that are just seen all around us? Just practical things, just the day-to-day, in our day-to-day life. Because it's important for us to be able to say, look, this thing it has a potential of making a person to grieve. So what could be some examples that can cause grief in people generally?
As Dr. T, in his introduction, he touched quite a lot of them. The very common one we all know is death.
Yeah.
That we all have experienced that whether it's a death of a father, a relative, a friend. So it's death. Divorce, because there's a change. There's a change in relationships, whether it's divorce or just a loss of a relationship that you were looking forward to. You had expectations and you had hopes, and those hopes are dashed down. Your change in your health, illness, because you were able to do things. Losing a job, you know, losing a job, losing a friend, financial in these times, financial security. Yes, caused a lot of grief. A lot of people are going through that adjustment, you know, and some people can even suffer adjustment disorder because you can't then come back to your normal routine. You're not sure what to do. So change of places, just moving from one place to another, because you have developed attachment, you have developed connections, and savoring those connections and attachments, it's a loss. So any type of a loss, just as we go through change, and we talk about teenage crisis or midlife crisis, those are examples of change. Just that those are major changes that we feel, but there are small changes that happen every day. Change of diet.
Amen. So,
and another thing, my leader, is that everybody experiences grief, including children as well. You know, most often than not, you know, we focus on the elderly, you know, children and also the youth. You know, they are going through grief. And then some of the things that people do in order to mitigate for the loss. You know, we come as a church, you know, that this person has got a drinking problem, you know, and then we need to pray for the drinking problem. Instead of actually, you know, go through and talking to the person, but why are you doing? Because some of them, they'll tell you that I was not drinking, I didn't like drinking or drugs or something like that, but I am dealing with this situation, you know, that I find myself hard pressed, you know, in a tight corner, not being able to come out of it, you know. So I resorted to distractions, you know. It can be sports, you know. Some people, you know, they rather get distracted by sports or just entertainment as a form of distraction, because there is this thing that is facing the person, you know. And also even overworking yourself, you know, being in a job, you are trying to compete, or even being over religious for that matter, you know. So what I'm trying to say is that everybody is affected by loss, and we also need to look into all the age groups they are affected by loss. Thank you.
What could be the things that could affect children to grieve? That's one. But two, how can we pick up when a child is going through grief?
I would like to just have a general approach for this one, and Dr. E can be able to fill up the the terms of how do you see in children. One of the things that worries me the most that happens in churches is relocation of pastors, and their families. I have seen this time and time again when pastors' kids have to speak maybe in a funeral or something, and they literally, you find that the guy is in his middle 40s or 50s, but he's still talking that, a life of a pastor's kid involves relocation and every other thing, and you meet friends, you make friends, you have to, relocate, and just say, wow, it's an observation that I just see that, I'm saying to myself, wow, I'm not sure whether, parents are aware that even just as as Dr. E has said, just relocating, can affect a child because, you are breaking, you are detaching a person, from important relationships, So that is what we see also in children, and also, the change of a family structure. Remember that your child is coming from both of you, and he loves you, both of you, regardless what are your challenges as parents. And now, if the child, must be put in a space where he stays with the other, he cannot see the other, these two people that they love the most, they are fighting. When two elephants are fighting, they don't hurt each other that much. The grass that they are fighting on is the one that suffers the most. The children are affected by the disruption in the family unit. I mean, we're talking about loss of jobs and every other thing. Whatever happens to parents, inevitably affects the what you call the children.
Good, Dr. E. Now, maybe you can also fill in here about children.
Yes.
How can we pick up these things, and what are some of these things that could really affect them?
Yeah, he has touched quite an important thing, especially the disruption of stability of family. Divorce is the greatest amongst the kids. And you may think that they are able to cope and manage, but then they start to have certain behavior changes that you can pick. For example, if they are younger children, you start to have crying spells when they used not to cry so much. Now suddenly there's this crying for no apparent reason, and you can't put your finger to it. Just watch out for that, because that's one of the major telling sign. Sleeping patterns change. They now can no longer sleep without either watching something or doing something, or they have nightmares. Suddenly, I have nightmares. They become suddenly fearful. They cannot be alone. They can't stay in a alone place. I can't sleep alone. They need someone. Those are telling signs. Withdrawal. They can withdraw from their friends, from activities. Suddenly, they don't want to go outside and play anymore. Then something is wrong. Then those are telling signs. Eating habits. Some, they start to eat a lot. They have one meal a day from morning to evening, just one meal. They clean the fridge, or others, they don't eat at all. So it be either extreme. They can regress in their milestones. Someone who was able to control their habits, their bladder, suddenly they are bedwetting. And then that the change that is affected them. So you can pick quite a lot if you just observe the kids, their behavior, what they do, how they are affected. Especially with change from school, changing their schools affects kids a lot, and we don't think about it. Just changing schools and changing their friends. You can see they become so lonely, withdrawn, and so yes, we need to be watchful for our kids. The older kids, they become delinquents. They start to engage in dangerous activities, coming home late. Start to try drinking and drugs, and then start lying, and you can see this one is lying. They start doing those things, then they are dealing with something that it's grieving them to some extent, but they're not able to express it.
Great.
And another thing I've observed with the youth, especially, you find that the youth, most of them are angry. You know, they are like ticking time bombs. You know, they, you know, as Dr. E has said, you know, they are delinquent. You know, they do not like, you know, they are defiant of authority. You know, all sorts of those things. You know, somebody's hurting. You know, and it's that we cannot see the hurt. We just judge the what to call the outside behavior, and yet we actually need time to actually talk to the person. And people can actually need somebody to care, you know, to show love, to know, without being judgmental, so that they can open up and tell you that I'm going through this. One of the fearful things that just passed through my mind is that human beings are like onions. You know, you never know what is inside until you start peeling. You know, and honestly speaking, remember, Pastor Jay, that we talked that, you know, a human being is a multi-dimensional organism, you know, that involves physical, mental, social, emotional, and spiritual. If one aspect gets affected, the other one sympathizes. Can you imagine? You know, you are talking about a disruption of family, you know, there is a divorce in the family or separation. You know, you can actually see each and every segment getting affected, you know, and right up until we spoke about it, psychosomatic disorders, where the person is dealing with an emotion, a psychological problem, it's going through depression or whatever, stress, but it manifests itself, you know, as a physical symptom, you know, you know, you have headaches, ulcers, and so forth and so on.
All right. All right. If you have just joined us on Facebook or YouTube, you are listening to a program, Your Health Matters. Tonight we are discussing the subject of grief. We are talking to Dr. Mletswane and Dr. Mukahiwa. You were saying, Dr. T, a person is like an onion. Now, until you start peeling, lo and behold, there are revelations that come. Now, I want us to talk about this aspect of peeling in the form of managing. Now, grief has come in me or in a person related to me or to a friend and whoever. Now we need to do the peeling because obviously, as I'm listening to you tonight, I'm beginning to see that there is a weakness, there is a need in our society. Well, in church, there is a need in our families. There is a need in our communities. There is a need in the church to be able to know if and when the grief has come, how do I deal with it? How do I start peeling now? Now, maybe I want to start at a personal level. So Dr. E, how does this work now?
You know, you can't meet a stranger on the road and just say, what are you going through?
Yeah.
So we need to do the Jesus method. We need to mingle with people in a way that we befriend them, not to benefit from them, but for them to benefit from us.
Yeah.
That's a very different approach. Because when you mingle from a point of giving, that's what Jesus did. You desire their good. And when you desire their good, they can see your genuine love, then they win your confidence, and then they're able to open up. No one wants to open to someone who is going to run on Facebook. Do you know what Pastor Jay is going through? You know, he just lost his glasses and he's confused and he's going through this. And so, you know, so people need to trust you.
Yes.
And they need to know you that you are trustworthy. So at a personal level, we need to relate with people as friends, as brothers and sisters, first before we start peeling. Build the foundation, build a relationship.
Yes. And another thing, Dr. E, that is talking about, you cannot peel a person. A person can be like an onion, but the person, you cannot peel the person like it.
No.
The person will volunteer peel himself or herself to you. And as Dr. E has said, you have to stage the environment. You must make it,
Whilst you are there, Dr. T, whilst you are there, now let's start with the peeling. Now, the peeling in this case, it's a personal one now. Okay, let's move on from another person. Now, you're going through grief. You could be in denial or whatever, but you need to do the peeling. How could this happen? Because the personal level applies both to myself and to somebody else too.
I think, my leader, when something is happening to you, it's very difficult to be a referee and a player at the same time.
Yes.
You are the one that is affected, and you need somebody that is closer to you to be able to see that, this is what you're going through. I always have heard, ministers would say, I have preached, sermons trying to motivate or to encourage those who are going through grief. But when it hits the person, those very same verses become valueless. It literally shows that now, the whole situation is changing gears. Then you were an observer. Now you are actually a participant. So it's very difficult to do something that you yourself, to be able to see yourself. But if you are a person that is able to be objective, you can be able to say to yourself, I used to enjoy this. I no longer enjoy this. I used to be able to be a person who enjoys going outdoors. Now I'm withdrawn and I enjoy private space. Just by assessing your behavior, you can actually be able to see that there is something that you are going through. It's very simple.
Yes.
Whenever you have lost something, you will react to it. And how you react, you can actually be able to measure, based on what you used to be, and what you are now. If there is a difference, you are going to some form of grief. But sometimes other people, they do not have, that tool to be able to be objective, because the person is going through this stuff, a lot of pressure. So he is reacting, and to be proactive, my leader, it's very difficult.
Yeah. Now, Uvusi Tantlam Tembo on Facebook, he says that, true, we need to look behind the facade. The onion has many layers, so is human beings. Most of the youth are wearing masks, and when they are home, they're wearing a different mask than they were in church or school or when they are with friends. So this really, this issue speaks to the point that we need to be skilled, if I can put it that way, in knowing when and how to peel. And Dr. E, you mentioned something very important in the beginning there in saying, in my own words, that trust awakens trust. It just does not drop in the sky. So there should be a trust relationship that exists for the peeling to take place. And what does this mean, therefore, in as far as family is concerned? Because I want to link what someone is saying here on Facebook, that there are different masks. There's one for out there. Then as soon as the person walks inside the yard, he changes that mask and he puts in another mask. So in other words, it looks like we are just running around with that different kind of mask. Dr. E.
You know, this is where we need to be when Dr. T is talking about self-introspection, knowing who am I and what is my value, because all these things come because we got pressure from different levels of identifying with certain individuals and certain groups. So to fit in, then I have to put on a mask and have this facade. And what we need to do is that if we develop a culture in the home where we are genuine people, we are honest, you are open with your children, you know, they grow with that openness, that acceptance. Then when they are out there, they don't need to change to fit in and put a lie. So that comes with the responsibility of a family. That is a family. We have to create an environment where we are bringing young men and young women who are not afraid to be themselves and even be rejected, for that matter, by the society, by the people, but you are yourself and you are content and pleased with that. And that has to come in from the foundation of family values, family systems, building like that. And then you'll be able now not to have one person at home. Imagine a person, you are as a pastor, we see you as this man, and at home, your family see you as a monster.
Yeah.
Imagine what it does to the family when you are preaching. So this is exactly what we're looking at. We need to get into a relationship with God where we can have spirit of discernment.
Wow.
Let me repeat it, spirit of discernment. Without that, we will not be able to relate to a point where someone will be able to open up. Because for your onion levels to fall out, I need to have that spirit of discernment to create an environment, create a conversation, a relationship that would lead to that. Because now, as you said, trust, what does it do? Brings trust.
Yes, correct. Now, as I listen to both of you gentlemen, Dr. T, I begin to see that there is a direct relationship between what we do at home as a family in terms of instilling values, development of character, and grief. And this is something that really never crossed my mind until we discussed it tonight. So my question, therefore, what are some practical things that we can do now at home for our children, for example, that will empower them so that they are not easy victims of grief?
My leader, one of the things that, we are challenged, especially in South Africa, is the fragmentation of the nucleus family. I mean, parents are going through a hard time. Families are going through a hard time. Families are under attack. When you look at, look at the statistics around, that family union is attacked in different levels. And really, as a church, we need to actually pray for this and be able to do positive measures, to strengthen the family, the family units, that are in our society. One of the things that are very important, number one, is to develop a personal relationship with God. I cannot ever emphasize that. Dr. E, no one, we are health professionals, and we are human beings as well. Sometimes you would find me, I'm in a situation where I'm just dealing with something, maybe a patient that we are not sure about the diagnosis, and you are at a point of need. You want to talk to Dr. E, you want to talk to me, but we do not have the time. We have got patients that are waiting for us. You get what I'm trying to say? So you may find that you want to open up and I am not ready to to be there for you as a person. And that sometimes make people, to withdraw, and be hurting alone, so we need to have a personal relationship. Hence, we always say, have a personal relationship with God. You must know that human beings, they have got shortcomings. Nobody can be a savior. You have a savior. Jesus is your savior. Jesus has got interest. You can talk to him at any time, and don't expect what you can get from God, to get it from people. You get what I'm trying to say? People are people, and they react the way people do, but God will always be there for us. And it's very important that we emphasize, to build a lasting relationship with God, because at any time, you've got somebody that cares. Point number one. Point number two, is to train up children. The Bible says, train up a child in the way that he would go, so that when he grows older, he will not deviate from it. I'm paraphrasing. Children, parents should develop mechanisms to build resilience in children. Children must understand that there is a difference between, a family environment and the world outside, the family settings. And they should be prepared. They should be trained, to be actually resilient, so that they can be able, to adapt, in a very hostile environment, to be able to know that they are human beings apart from their grades, apart from how they look, and apart from their IQ, and so forth and so on. They need to appreciate that they are here through the anointment of God. They are called by God to non-existence, so that their life matters. They have got a purpose in life. They have to fulfill, that life, so that when they die, they have fulfilled their purpose. Study the scriptures. The scriptures are there to build, resilience around, our minds, because that's where the battle between evil and good is fought. You would find that the devil will use the 5 gates, which are 5 senses, the sense of eyesight, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, those are the gates to your mind, so you need the scripture, to build a wall, a firewall, as the IT guys would say, a firewall around your brain, so that, things, insults that are coming, from all sorts of things that are coming through the 5, 5 senses, cannot be able, to hurt you. Prayer, talking to God. When you look at the book of Psalms, you would pick up that there are songs. Some of them are prayers where you can actually see that David or other psalmists are actually ventilating, their anger, their frustration to God. It's very important, so that, as you are reading the Bible, you can actually see how other people behave in the similar situation. But when you are praying, you are actually ventilating. It's some sort of a psychotherapy. And there have been studies that have shown that people who are praying, they're able to handle grief better and handle, the difficulties in life better than people who do not have, a religious support system. And finally, it's hope. Hope. Is to always encourage hope. Things will be better. There are phrases in the Bible that always come time and time again, and it came to pass. Life is seasonal. Nothing lasts forever. When you are in a good time, you must know it will end. When you are going through a tough time, you must know it is going to end. Everything comes to pass. Life is seasonal. You've got 4 seasons in the year. You've got autumn, you've got winter, you've got spring, you've got summer. Accept that. And I like what God says to Noah when he came out from the from the ark. And after Noah had offered his sacrifice, he said, so long as the earth exists, there will always be winter and summer, seed time and harvest time. cold and heat, seasons in life. But when you trust in God, you will not be a seasonal tree, but you will be an evergreen tree.
Wonderful, wonderful. Look, there is a very exciting perspective here that that we really need to underscore time and again, and that is in a family setting, we need to always do things in the light of these possibilities of life. So for example, to remember that, for example, if we are consistent with family worship, we are empowering our children to be able to deal with the challenges of life that may cause grief to them. And secondly, that, for example, one of the things that we never pay attention to, that has a direct effect to grief, that when a child moves from one school to another, these are the things we never pay attention to and think, life just goes on as normal. That, that change isn't this though an iron of some sort, that in life we look for change, we even pray for change. And when that change comes, and boom, some form of grief that comes with the change. So what this also says in our homes, that now when your children change schools, be mindful of the grief factor that can affect these kids. Be able to sit down and discuss, no matter how the child is excited about the new experience that is coming, that this thing may ruffle the feathers of comfort that he's been having from previous schools. And the other one that we also don't pay attention to, as we discussed, it comes to my mind, is the issue of changing houses. You're moving from one neighborhood to another, and it's easier sometimes for kids to be excited about this move, or maybe the move was even started by them, or the move was started by parents. They are the ones who wanted to, but they are forgetting that, as much as you are going to this nice, beautiful place that looks better than where you were, but there are other dynamics that come into play. For example, children had friends in this place where you are now, but where you are going, there are no friends. So new life must start. And that on its own can really disrupt their lives in a very big way. So we're saying therefore tonight that, there is a direct relation, impact, effect between change, whatever that change is, whether it's neighborhood, it's school, whatever it is, it has a direct relationship or effect or impact with grief. And therefore, whenever change comes, we need to be conscious of the importance of workshopping each other about what this may mean to us as we move to this new change. Now, Doc, a nation is made up of families, of society, of neighborhoods. And if you wanted to see the character of the nation, you need to look at the people. Sometimes the funny thing is that sometimes we get surprised about the things that happen in a particular country or in our neighborhood. And we forget that these things are a reflection of who we are. Now, in a community setting, how do we get empowered? How, as families, for example, can we empower our own communities on this issue of grief? Dr. T.
My leader, as African people, we have been, we have got a very rich culture. There used to be a practice you know, where we call it ukusisa. And I'm a Sotho, but I have stayed in KZN and I've learned some of the traditional things that are there. It's called ukusisa. If your neighbor does not have, it has got children, but he's coming from a poor background, you know, you have got cattle, and then you lend. I don't know whether is it a loan or I'm not sure, but you lend the what to call the neighbor with a cow, a milk cow, you know, so that you can be able, you know, to milk the cow, so that you can get, you know, what to call milk for the children and so forth. They actually, you know, give you some livestock so that you can be able, you know, to get some food from the day. We used to call it uksisa, you know,
Yeah.
up until you actually build yourself up, you know. And you know, there is an expression in English that say, you know, a child needs a village to grow up. You know, where, you know, we have had those what to call social dynamics that of support that were very, very rich in our culture. We need to develop those things. As we see in the postmodern culture, where competition, you know, is the thing of today, you know, where people, you know, are happy. Where you've got even channels in the television or in DSTV bouquet, which talks about, you know, cheating, that talks about, you know, people, you know, that talks about personal issues, and make it a public matter, you know, where people can comment and so forth. You know, we need to encourage, you know, that sense of being there for each other, ubuntu. You get that's what some people are saying, and also what God said, that you are your. I mean, when Cain was asked, "Where is your brother?" He said, "Am I my brother's keeper?" You know, we need that spirit to be there. Number one. Number two, my leader, we actually need to be very careful for single parent families. You know, we need to be able of support, because for you to raise a child, you need the two people that made the child. So if there is only one parent, you must know that there is a deficit, there is a crack, that there is a dent, you know. So we need, you know, we who are coming from, you know, families where you've got a father and a mother, to adopt children, you know, to adopt, you know, even elderly people, you know, so that they can find some balance, you know, in their lives, so that, you know, they can be able to develop normally, knowing that they have, you know, some support, you know. And I must say, my leader, as my last point, you know, we really need to be involved, you know, as community, in the lives of our, you know, of the members of community. We need to do mentoring. I always, we talk about Dr. E about this time and time again. You know, back in the days, you know, no one has, you know, a life's manual about how to handle stages of life. We really, the elderly needs to come down, you know, to the young ones and be able, you know, to sharpen up. The Bible says an iron sharpens another iron, and says children are like, you know, arrows, you know, in the quiver of a warrior, you know. And we do not need blunt arrows. You get what I'm trying to say? We need very sharp arrows. So we need to mentor each other. We need to build each other. My leader, appreciation. You know, some people, by our kind words, you know, they can be built emotionally and so forth. And so let us not always be looking at the bad things that people are doing. You can change behavior by actually being able to commend, to give credit where credit is due. I'm not saying that we need to condone things, but what I'm saying to say, we need to say something good, you know, so that to develop, you know, a person. We need to preach hope, you know, that things are not as bad as they are, and to lend a hand. You know, we can give money, pastor, offerings and everything, but there is no offering. There is no better offering than being there, you know, than walking life with another person.
Good, good. Now, Dr. E, let's talk about the church now. What is it? What are some of the things that the church could do in dealing with the issue of grief?
You know, James 1:27 talks about pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father is to visit the orphans and widows in their trouble and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. And as a church, you can never say you are a Christian when your fellow brother is hungry. And what I can say is that my brother will pray for you, but I have 2 loaves of bread. So church, as a church, we need to be practical.
Amen.
We cannot talk about things and not do it. It is, Mahatma Gandhi said, I would have been a Christian if Christians had become Christians. So it means there was definitely something that is missing in our Christianity. So as a church, we need to, as some of the things that we can do for the community, we can do the same thing for others. One of the things is when God saw Gideon hiding in the threshing floor, he didn't say to him, "You coward, what are you doing there?"
Yes, exactly.
He said, "A man of valor."
Yes.
Which means a victor. Already was claiming him to be a victor. He saw the potential. So we need to see the potential in the other person. They may be struggling right now, but look at the potential. What is their potential? Develop the potential. We need to have developed skill-based skills. Functional. We used in the old, they used to have, where during the youth program where people would come in, you learn computer, you learn woodwork. We need to do those kind of things with our young people. Teach them life skills so that they're able to do that. Women, when we have a widow, I was talking to one widow. He says it's tough to be a widow, and people don't know. I can't approach them to say I need help because I feel ashamed.
Yes.
And so we need to be. That's grieving there, exactly. So we need to be initiators.
Yes.
We need to be proactive rather than to be reactive. We need to set a debriefing sessions as church members, where you debrief spiritually, because some people have been spiritually murdered in church.
Yes.
You need to debrief there. You need to debrief psychologically and mentally, so people can be able to worship together. And so there is a lot that we can do as a church. We need to be the hands and feet of Jesus.
So, and this thing of sometimes we say, life goes on, and we are not even dealing with the issue, and sometimes we say, look, I mean, I'm fine, but this person has suffered a loss.
In fact, my pastor, if I can jump in, most of the time, bad behavior, harsh words, mean words to others, it's an expression of crying. It's a cry that is deep inside, but I don't know how to express my cry, my need. Therefore, I come across you as offensive. And then we say, Brother Emmanuel is so offensive. But it is because I am crying for help. But I don't know how to express that need. So we need to be sensitive rather than to discard the person like that one is, but to look and say, how can we help you? What's going on? Why are you always angry? Why are you always blaming everybody for everything? What's going on? So you can actually see the person is grieving. Why? Because those are signs of grieving, where you start blaming others, where you start being irritable, easily irritable,
Yes. Now, at what point then do we seek professional help? Now I see I've got grief, and I need to get out of this thing. I shall be well. Life goes on and so on. At what point, Dr. T, should someone seek professional help when there is a change in his life?
Yes. It's very important, to understand that no one is a Superman
Yes.
or Superwoman. That is very important because, you know, you would find that people are lost in the cracks because of not appreciating, you know, that they need help.
Mm.
You know, when I feel that I'm hurt and when I feel that I cannot cope, where I feel that things are just falling apart, I need to cry out. If I feel I'm drowning, I have to cry out. Forget that I'm a professional. Forget that I'm a pastor. Forget that what position I'm holding at work. Forget that. You are a human being that is in trouble. You need help. Cry out for help. Because you would find that you will die, you will drown if you are not crying out. So cry out for help. You know, go to the person that you are closer, a friend, and tell that things are just falling apart. You know, and then so that people can be able to be aware that you need help and that can be able to deal with you. That's point number one. Point number two, my leader, it's very important to understand that, you know, even as Christians, things do get out of hand. Even though we pray, things do get out of hand. We need some extra help in order for us, you know, to normalize the situation. You know, some of these problems that bring about, I mean, the grief can push you to depression. And then we know that the people like Dr. Ida will tell you that it's a hormonal imbalance. And then you need some treatment in order for you to get things balanced. You need some psychotherapy, you know, from psychologists, clinical psychiatrists, and so forth and so on, you know, so that to be able, you know, to actually open you up, you know, through, of course, you know, your willingness to open you up and be able to walk with you, you know, through this pathway. So unless you are willing to be assisted, no one can assist you, you know, and then please, hey, this one is a problem. You know, sometimes some of the things that are the mental health instability, they need treatment. You need to get into treatment. Doesn't know, no, I mean, I'm praying, I'm going to be fine. You know, you know, that is not the right approach. You know, God has blessed us with herbs. God has blessed us with doctors and nurses and the healthcare department and drugs. Not all drugs are bad. You know, some drugs are there to be used in order to bring normality to a person. You know, and also above all is to understand that you know, in that journey, you need somebody who's going to be able, you know, to measure your progress, who is going to literally to be objective. You know, when you are bringing a professional person, you are bringing somebody that is going to be objective with you. That yes, you know, they are not sympathizing, but they are empathizing with you. You know, because sometimes sympathy can break a person. You know, but empathizing is something else, where you find somebody that's going to say, you know what, I think this. Actually, they go through your history, they go through your what you call your background and every other thing, so that they can just get an idea what type of a person you are, you know, your family tree and so forth, and then be able through you are able to give answers that are going to give them idea exactly what is your problem. You know, so work hand in hand with healthcare professionals in order to be able to assist you. You know, and I mean, look at the case of Hezekiah. Hezekiah, you know, God sent Isaiah to tell him that he must set his house in order. He's going to die shortly. And Hezekiah, you know, did not beg him, but he prayed to God, to asking for extra heirs, and God did that. But look at how God addresses the problem. He says, he's speaking to Isaiah, tell Hezekiah to go and get, you know, figs, all right, and put it on the boil, and it's going to help. But wait a minute, who is doing the prescription here?
It's God himself.
It's not a doctor, it's God. You know, God could have healed the guy with so various means. But he uses natural remedies. He can also use drugs to assist people from that. We should run away from thinking that you are antichrist if you are going to healthcare professional. You just need to pray, and pray and fast. You'll die in your fast. You need a whole lot of things.
Seeking for help does not mean you don't believe in God or you don't trust God anymore.
Exactly.
Dr. E.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Your closing thought.
We experience grief on a daily basis because grief is associated with change. And the way we handle change, the way we adjust, it depends on the character that we have built, the resistance, the resilience we have, the mental culture, whether our minds are fortified or not, our approach to life, whether we compare ourselves with others, whether we think when we express things, then we are weak or not. We need to realize it's not a weakness to ask for help. It is strength. It is only a strong man who says, I need help. A weak man will pretend that everything is well until they are crushed and they die alone. So may God help us as a church that as we grieve through this COVID-19, we grieve with hope, not like those who are not with hope, because we know that the one we have believed in, the one we have trusted, is able to keep us from falling and to sustain us until he comes again. So there is hope, there is life, and there is a victory in Jesus.
And another thing, my leader, just to add on, we need to understand that first and foremost, time is a blessing. And even forgetfulness, as we move away from that point where we were grieving and time lapses, time is a healer. Secondly, it's the issue of we call it adapting. If we have lost someone, through time, healing through time, you are going to adapt, to learn to live without the person, and lastly, whatever happens, we are looking for the hope of the soon return of Jesus Christ. Things will be well when Jesus Christ comes. So we need to be people of hope. You can live a month without food. You can live roughly 3 days without water. You can be able to survive about 5 minutes without air. But people say you cannot live 3 seconds without hope. So we have the hope in Jesus that things will be well.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. What Umtunzi says, seeking help is not a sign of weakness. So I'm sure in this discussion, everybody has been able to look at his or her own life and begin to be brutal to say, am I going through some form of grief, no matter how small it is? And the last one that is pointed, that is also very important here, what Zanai says, let's grieve with hope. So you may be listening tonight, watching the show and saying to yourself, I am grieving for whatever reason. I'm going through this, I'm going through that. But our message tonight is that seek help, because God has placed people out there who can provide you the help that you need. Stay close to God, stand tall on your knees, and allow God to give you the fix that your particular grief needs. And before you know it, you shall be over with that. And even if your grief seems to be the worst of its own kind, that will stay with you for the rest of your life, I want to say tonight that there is hope for all of us. No matter what you're going through, our God that we worship understands the grief that we may be going through, but also as families, let's now going forward be conscious of what change does to our lives so that we can help one another, empower one another, how to be strong in dealing with the grief as it comes. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight to discuss such an important subject. I feel myself empowered, and I've seen some light bulbs coming on in my own life because we have seen tonight in this discussion that what we do has a direct effect on this matter of grief. And I'm saying, may God help us to be conscious. And if as a parent, you have not been there as much as you need to be, you have not been holding your role as you should, begin today. Our God is a God of second chance. Start afresh today. If as a young person out there, you are going through some changes in your life that you have even been reluctant to discuss with your family, we are saying seek help. Seek help so that you can be out of this grief. May the Lord bless us as we go through this night, this Sabbath, and thank you both, gentlemen, for enlightening us, for empowering us. May God also bless you in your ministry. Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night. Your health matters.
Thank you.